かってくるのか、逃げずにこのディオに近づいてくるのか。
近づかなきゃてめえをぶちのめせないんでな。
Dio Brando, who we'll now refer to as Dio, has a more technical playstyle than Jump Force, if that makes sense. What I mean is that Dio has a playstyle that isn't bound to anything in particular. Dio has a number of tools to approach a number of different scenarios, but doesn't necessarily excel at any one thing. First appearing in the manga series JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Dio poses the main antagonist in several of the story arcs, as well as in the anime that was later adapted. In his younger years, Dio had a very bad upbringing, which led him down his path of hostility and active opposition. Posing as the villain of his respective series, Dio is well known for his characteristic staunch ambitions, particularly when in a pursuit for power. When playing against Dio, players should be cautious as he has a number of tricks up his sleeve to turn the tide of the fight in his favour, and when playing as Dio, you should always look to keep the opponent guessing with your varied moveset. Dio's first ability is called Useless Useless. This is Dio's reliable go-to combo tool which is very good for ending combos, but with some practice can be utilised to extend a combo by adding an additional special. Dio slowly moves forward as his stand, the world, unleashes a flurry of close-range melee attacks. Holding down the right trigger, which we'll now call the ability button, will extend the attack for longer. I would say that you should always be looking to extend the duration of this attack if it successfully lands to begin with. If it whiffs or is blocked, however, there's really no point in extending it. The final blow of this attack is a big uppercut from Dio's stand, which knocks the opponent very far away. This plays a unique cinematic animation, however with some practice this can be foregone to extend the combo by switching out your character without compromising the extra damage and knockback of that final blow. As this is Dio's bread and butter attack, you should first learn to master this before moving into the more situational elements of his kit. Useless Useless also has armor properties against normal attacks, however special attacks will knock you straight out of this ability, so be wary. Useless Useless is not an attack you can throw out in neutral and has decent pressure abilities on blocking opponents. I would suggest that you should always look to use this in a combo to end or extend, and only use for the armor properties if you know that the opponent is going to try and use a normal button on you. Dio's second ability is called Checkmate. This is Dio's only long-range projectile attack. Dio once again summons his stand to throw knives and inflict damage on the enemy. If this attack successfully lands, you can keep hold of the ability button for the stand to throw an additional knife, which is just nice for an extra bit of damage. The tracking on this attack isn't very good, so I would suggest using this when you know how the opponent moves to get the best chance of landing it. Also, if the opponent is perceptive, they can very easily whiff punish this attack, which is very easy for them to avoid in the first place, so use it sparingly. I myself prefer to barely use this ability throughout a match, so that the opponent will be conditioned to not expect it. Then I'll throw it out when I know that it's going to land for some cheeky damage. I know I've ended a couple of games by using this tactic in fact. This is probably Dio's weakest attack, and is definitely one of the weaker projectiles in the game that I've used, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have its application in certain scenarios. You can combo into this attack with certain strings, however there's never a reason to do this when you can just use Dio's first ability, which costs the same amount of energy, one ability bar. So throwing this ability out in neutral is generally the best way to use it, as well as cancelling the opponent's energy charge for a little damage. However, it's hard to follow up with anything off of this attack without switching character. This move is pretty much useless in close range as the opponent can very easily get a whiff punish off of its startup and recovery, so avoid doing this. Dio's third ability is called Blend. This would have to be Dio's best ability given the utility that it provides, although his first ability Useless Useless is a strong contender for that. Blend is a short range dash with a long startup, but it is completely unblockable. This attack is fairly easy to combo into with similar strings to how you would usually combo with Dio's first or second abilities. Upon landing this attack, Dio will taste your blood, I guess, which serves as an energy drain on the opponent. The enemy hit will lose about 40% of 1 bar of ability gauge, and Dio will gain about 60% of 1 bar in return. This attack does cost 2 ability bars, which makes it more difficult to spam after every combo string. However, Dio gaining back around a quarter of the cost does help when charging energy in the long term, so that's always nice. I like to use this ability when I know that the opponent is wanting to do things with their own ability bar. Despite the drain not being much, it could be the difference between your opponent using their game-winning ability and them not using it, so that's really important to note. With a predictable startup, using this attack in neutral is not really an option, so always look to combo into this after a standard 2-hit heavy string, the same way you would with your other abilities. Dio's awakened ability is called the World. This ability is amazing in every regard. The World is a dash attack awakened ability, which is fairly normal, and whilst it isn't as fast as some, it is by no means a slow dash. After the ability cinematic, which is one of the best in the game by the way, Dio will return to form much faster than his opponent, meaning that he can begin charging energy or swapping character or even continuing pressure, so there's a lot of options here. This ability is extremely easy to combo into, and can even be confirmed into off of a useless, which is my go-to combo when it's available. I did have one instance where this attack missed off of a useless attack, but that was one time out of many, so I'm not sure if that's really an issue to worry about. So this ability has good damage, easy combo potential, and is very versatile both before and after its use. So overall it's a pretty good awakened ability, especially when you compare it to the rest of his kit, which is kind of lackluster, especially when you consider abilities like Checkmate, which isn't very good. But this awakened ability is probably one of the best in the game that I've had the pleasure to experience, so yeah. When you call upon Dio as an assist, he uses his Checkmate ability, which is his second one. This ability works much better as an assist than a regular ability due to the poke capabilities and the fact that you don't need to spend any energy on it. Being able to simply poke the opponent, forcing them to stay still for a moment, is this ability's strongest utility. It also allows you to very easily capitalize off of the short hit stun of this attack when you're playing as a different character you have full control over. So this means that whilst this ability is quite bad by itself, it does much better as an assist when you know how to use it correctly, so that will take a little bit of practice to maximize the utility of this assist. As mentioned previously, Dio has a more technical fighting style. This basically means that Dio's strengths don't come from predefined roles, such as rushing down, zoning, etc., and instead come from more contextualized scenarios such as mixing up the opponent. If I had to lean more towards one style over another, however, it would definitely be a more aggro style by mixing up the opponent in close quarters as a way of threatening them, as well as with punishing their attacks. This can be done with his blend grab ability, useless armor properties, and general combo string pressure. Dio is one of those characters that you can't just throw into any team and expect good results. I myself feel that Dio should be the main force of your team in which you build around to compensate for his shortcomings, whether that be better poke from Gaara or Boa, or better rushdown potential from someone like Izuku or Asta. His abilities are fairly straightforward, always look to end combos with useless unless you feel the need to drain some of the opponent's ability gauge by using blend. Dio's use of Checkmate is something that I would say comes with time and practice, as it's much harder to specify if and when this ability needs to be used in a match. Despite Dio being one of the first characters I played as, I definitely feel that a more skilled Dio player will be the one who has a really good grasp of the core mechanics of the game, as his playstyle is a little harder to grasp than someone like Dai or Asta, who are a lot more simple. I wouldn't say that any character in this game is difficult per se, but I would say that Dio does require more thought than a lot of the other characters I've played, just because of the nature of his abilities. I personally feel that Dio is fairly powerful with his good damage potential and versatile kit, and he's quite fun to play as. So for me, Dio is a high recommendation for anyone looking to spice up their Jump Force character pool. Guys, this has been the character guide for Dio Brando. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.
闇を欺いて切なを交わして刃すり抜け奴らの隙をつけ貫い